Payers generally defer to panels of experts to formulate their diagnostic criteria. They'll become part of the medical policies and clinical criteria that'll feed into the prior authorization process. So for almost every treatment for a rare disorder, there's specific criteria that a payer will go through. And there's some deviation from this depending on how the particular treatment is reimbursed, whether it's on the pharmacy benefit or the medical benefit. But they all, with very few exceptions, go through a prior authorization process that has a first level, second internal level, and then an external review if an appeal gets to that point where a denial has been upheld through the first two levels. But that criteria, sort of as part of medical policy, is generally sort of developed in close consultation for rare disorders with a panel of external experts that can number anywhere from 2 people to 10 people, depending on the disease, how much variability there is, and the severity and so on at the time of diagnosis, what the genetics are, what biomarkers are available, all those sorts of things. And so the knowledge incumbent in the payer is generally sort of not very deep for rare disorders, but it gets deeper through this consultation when new therapies come about with external experts. When nusinersen first was approved for the market in December of 2016, there was a lot of attention to kind of 2 factors. One was what type of SMA clinically, which I'll come back to this as a clinical diagnosis, did the patient have? And second, how many SMN2 copies did they have? As time wore on from that initial time period, at the time, sort of working with several dozen different plan sponsors, payer organizations, and understanding what their policies were, attention fell away from the number of copies. Because the number of copies doesn't necessarily translate, it's really a range for each type, doesn't translate directly into what type of spinal muscular atrophy is ultimately diagnosed by their treating specialist. So the criteria now, sort of the type of SMA, mainly dictated by age of onset, which age of onset is very important, but again, their age ranges, and ranges for a reason. And so there's clinical judgment applied by the treating specialists in making the designation of which type of SMA the patient is ultimately diagnosed with, that is informed by their motor milestones and their number of SMN2 copies. And thus over time what's evolved is there's more attention paid to the type of SMA that the patient has been diagnosed with than anything else. That said, there's still variability. There still are some plans that are asking for the number of SMN2 copies, asking for documentation of that result, and so on as part of their aforementioned prior authorization or PA process.